The desolate planet loomed on the horizon as my ship descended through its dusty atmosphere. The controls vibrated beneath my fingers as I steered toward an abandoned outpost, the only structure visible for miles. After months of space travel, this place was eerily quiet. As the landing gear touched the ground, I felt an unsettling stillness in the air, almost as if the planet itself was watching me. I stepped out into the arid landscape, a cloud of dust swirling around my boots. It was lifeless here, or so I thought. A strange energy prickled at the edge of my senses, and I felt as if something or someone was near. The air shimmered, almost bending with an unfamiliar force. Then, from the shadows of the rocky terrain, she appeared, a figure unlike anything I'd ever seen. Tall, elegant, her skin glowing faintly under the planet's strange sun. Her eyes locked onto mine, and in that moment, I knew my endurance was about to be tested in ways I couldn't possibly imagine. This was no ordinary encounter. I had just landed on a planet where the laws of human endurance would be pushed to the absolute limit. She moved toward me with grace, her form almost floating over the cracked surface of the planet. Her appearance was captivating. Her body exuded strength, and her eyes held a depth that was both alien and alluring. As she approached, I could feel the temperature around me rise. Her glowing skin radiated a heat that pulsed in waves, making the air feel electric. She spoke, but not in a language I could understand. Yet her voice resonated in my mind, as if our connection transcended speech. "You are human," her thoughts echoed in my head. "You have come far, but now you must prove your strength. Endure, and you may survive." I was stunned. Her presence was overwhelming, and my instincts screamed for caution, but something about her drew me in. Who was she? And what did she mean by endure? Her eyes never left mine, and I realized this was no ordinary test. This was a challenge, a trial of endurance unlike anything I had faced before. This alien woman held the key to my survival, and I was about to be tested in ways I couldn't predict. The heat intensified as the alien woman gestured toward a series of jagged cliffs in the distance. "Follow me," her voice echoed in my mind. I had no choice but to obey, my curiosity battling with a growing sense of dread. As we moved through the barren landscape, the temperature began to rise drastically. My suit's cooling system struggled to keep up, beads of sweat forming on my forehead. This planet wasn't just desolate, it was hostile. The heat pressed down on me, relentless and suffocating. My every step became a battle to stay upright. The alien woman, however, seemed unaffected, gliding effortlessly through the intense heat. She glanced back at me, her expression unreadable. "This is the first trial," she said. "Your endurance must be proven in the fire." I could feel my energy depleting, but I pushed on, determined not to show weakness. The heat was unbearable, my vision blurring as the sun beat down from above. Every breath felt labored. Was this what she meant by testing my endurance? If I couldn't survive the heat, how would I survive what was to come? This was just the beginning, and I had a feeling the worst was yet to come. As we crested the cliffs, I saw them, creatures unlike anything I had ever encountered. They prowled in the distance, their massive forms casting long shadows on the ground. The alien woman stopped and turned to me, her gaze unflinching. "These beasts are your next trial," she said, her voice calm. "Survive, and you prove your worth." My heart raced as the creatures caught sight of us, their growls vibrating through the air. Their eyes glowed with a predatory hunger, and I could see their sharp, jagged teeth glistening in the harsh light. The ground trembled beneath their powerful steps. My body tensed as they charged toward us. I had no weapons, no way to defend myself, yet the alien woman stood beside me, completely still, as if this was all part of her plan. "You will endure," she whispered into my mind, but I wasn't so sure. As the first beast lunged, time seemed to slow. I had to think fast, move faster. The creatures were relentless, and with every dodge, every desperate attempt to stay alive, I could feel my energy draining. But I couldn't give up. This was part of the test, and if I failed, I knew I wouldn't leave this planet alive. After what felt like hours of battling the alien creatures, the last one fell, its body collapsing into the dust. I was exhausted, barely able to stand. My body ached in ways I had never experienced before. But I was alive. I had survived the trial. The alien woman approached me, her eyes glowing brighter than before. There was something different about her now, something more intense. "You have proven your endurance," she said, her voice resonating deeply in my mind. But there was an edge to her tone that hadn't been there before. As I caught my breath, I realized something. This wasn't just a test of endurance for survival. There was something more at play here. The way she looked at me, the way she moved, it was clear she had other plans. "You are strong," she continued, her voice softening, "but strength is not enough. You must understand why you are truly here." My heart pounded as she stepped closer, her presence overwhelming. Her intentions were still unclear, but one thing was certain. I wasn't just here to prove myself. I was here for her, and whatever she wanted from me, it was far more dangerous than I had imagined. As she drew closer, her glowing form seemed to pulse with an energy I couldn't understand. Her eyes locked onto mine, and I could feel a strange force pulling at me, compelling me to stay. "Your final trial is not of the body, but of the mind," she said, her voice a hypnotic whisper in my thoughts. I didn't know what she meant, but there was no escaping it now. The air around me began to shimmer, and suddenly I was transported to a vision, a world unlike anything I had seen before. It was her world. In this place, time and space warped, bending to her will. She was testing my mind, pushing me to my limits. Images of pain, pleasure, fear, and desire flooded my consciousness, each one more intense than the last. My mind screamed to break free, but I knew if I gave in, I would be lost. "Endure," her voice commanded, echoing through the chaos. I focused, pushing through the overwhelming sensations, clinging to the only thought that mattered, survival. Slowly, the visions faded, and I was back on the barren planet. Exhausted, I collapsed to the ground, my mind and body spent. But I had survived. I had endured. I lay in the dust, gasping for air, as the alien woman stood over me, her expression unreadable. "You have passed," she said softly, her voice no longer commanding but almost admiring. But something felt off. As I tried to rise, the realization hit me like a shockwave. This was never just about survival, it was about control. "What now?" I asked, my voice hoarse. She tilted her head slightly, her glowing eyes narrowing. "You were the chosen one," she replied, "but you were never meant to leave." My heart sank. Everything I had endured, every trial was leading to this moment. "You have proven your strength, your mind, and now you will stay." Panic surged through me. "Stay? Here on this desolate planet forever?" "No," I whispered, staggering to my feet, "I won't." But she only smiled. With a wave of her hand, the landscape began to shift. The planet itself seemed to awaken, the ground trembling as it rose to trap me. I was no longer just a visitor. I was now a part of this place. She had claimed me, body and soul. The endurance test had been a trap, and I had fallen right into it. As the ground closed in around me, I fought to break free, but the planet itself held me tight, like a living prison. The alien woman watched silently, her expression calm, as if this was always how it was meant to end. "You will endure," she whispered, but this time it wasn't a command, it was a sentence. I had come to this planet seeking discovery, adventure, maybe even glory. Instead, I had become its prisoner. The truth hit me hard. This was my final resting place. There would be no escape, no rescue. The desolate planet, barren and lifeless, had claimed me. The alien woman, still glowing with an otherworldly light, turned and walked away, disappearing into the shimmering air. I called after her, but my voice was swallowed by the empty silence. Alone, I stood amidst the dust and ruins, the realization settling in that this was my fate. My endurance had been tested, and though I had survived, the price was eternal isolation. I would spend the rest of my days here, trapped in a cosmic prison, with nothing but the memory of the trials that had led to my downfall. The test was over, but for me, just when I thought all hope was lost, something inside me stirred. I had endured too much to give up now. I couldn't let this planet, or her, keep me captive. Summoning the last reserves of my strength, I pushed against the force that held me. The ground cracked beneath my feet, the planet resisting my will, but I fought harder. My mind, still aching from the alien trials, found clarity in the desperation. I wouldn't allow myself to be trapped forever. As I struggled, I saw her in the distance, the alien woman watching with a calm detachment. For the first time, I realized she wasn't invincible. She had underestimated me, assumed I would break under the strain, but she had been wrong. With a final push, I broke free from the planet's hold, stumbling onto solid ground. My heart pounded as I looked up at her. She no longer smiled. The air shimmered around her, but I didn't hesitate. I ran toward my ship, my lungs burning, my body screaming in protest. Behind me, I felt the planet rumble, but I didn't look back. I had endured her trials, and now I would survive. I boarded the ship and launched into the sky, leaving the desolate planet and her behind. Just when I thought all hope was lost, something inside me stirred. I had endured too much to give up now. I couldn't let this planet, or her, keep me captive. Summoning the last reserves of my strength, I pushed against the force that held me. The ground cracked beneath my feet, the planet resisting my will, but I fought harder. My mind, still aching from the alien trials, found clarity in the desperation. I wouldn't allow myself to be trapped forever. As I struggled, I saw her in the distance, the alien woman watching with a calm detachment. For the first time, I realized she wasn't invincible. She had underestimated me, assumed I would break under the strain. But she had been wrong. With a final push, I broke free from the planet's hold, stumbling onto solid ground. My heart pounded as I looked up at her. She no longer smiled. The air shimmered around her, but I didn't hesitate. I ran toward my ship, my lungs burning, my body screaming in protest. Behind me, I felt the planet rumble, but I didn't look back. I had endured her trials, and now I would survive. I boarded the ship and launched into the sky, leaving the desolate planet and her behind. Just as I began to relax, believing I had escaped, my ship's control panel started to flicker. A cold dread filled me as the systems failed one by one. The alien woman's voice echoed in my mind, a chilling whisper, "You cannot escape." Suddenly, the ship was pulled back toward the planet as if an invisible force had grabbed hold of it. I fought with the controls, but it was useless. Panic surged through me. The planet's grip was relentless, dragging me back into its desolate embrace. I had endured the trials, survived her tests, but the truth was clear now. I was never meant to leave. The ship crashed back onto the barren surface, and I stumbled out, breathless and defeated. The alien woman appeared once again, her glowing form almost serene. "You've shown great endurance, but no one escapes," she said softly. I realized with a sinking heart that this was the final trial, the acceptance of my fate. There was no running, no fighting left. The planet had claimed me, just as it had claimed countless others before. As the last traces of hope faded, I sank to my knees, understanding that this desolate world would be my prison forever. The end had come. As I knelt on the cold, desolate ground, I finally understood. No matter how hard I fought, no matter how much I endured, there was no escape from this place. The alien woman stood before me, her expression unreadable, her glowing eyes reflecting the hopelessness I felt. "You were never meant to leave," she whispered. Her words echoed in my mind, final and unyielding. The planet had claimed me the moment I set foot on its surface, and now I belonged to it forever. The ground trembled slightly, as if the planet itself was aware of my surrender. My ship lay broken, a silent testament to my failed escape. I looked up at the endless, empty sky and realized that this was how it would end, not with a final battle or a triumphant escape, but with quiet resignation. My body, my mind, my very soul had been tested. And though I had survived, the true test had been this, accepting my fate. As the alien woman faded into the distance, I closed my eyes and let the stillness of the planet wash over me. The trials were over. The struggle was done. This was the end.